Now, still on policing, Mzansi says the shortage of detectives in South Africa should be a cause for concern for all citizens. This follows a written parliamentary reply by Police Minister Senzo Mchunu that the South African Police Service has a detective vacancy rate of just over 8,500. Mchunu says these figures exclude the Hawks. Joining us to discuss the shortage in detectives is Makashule Gana, Mzansi Member of Parliament. Good evening, Mr. Gana. Thank you very much for joining us on The Full View. So just this Monday, we were dissecting the data of the 5 million case dockets that were closed since 2018 without any result due to insufficient evidence or leads. Now it all starts to make sense why we would have struggled in solving those cases. The country has 8,500 detective vacancies. Your reaction to this?
Thanks very much, Mfundo. Good evening to you and good evening to the viewers. So this should worry us all as South Africans that we've got such a high vacancy rate of detectives. Because when there are no detectives, it means that most of the cases that are reported to the police are not investigated. Even the ones that there are attempts to investigate, not proper investigation happens because the detectives that remain are overwhelmed and overworked by the caseload. That's why you'll find that many cases end up going cold or not being brought to court, and criminals continue to terrorize communities. And that's something that myself, when we go back to Parliament this week, in the interaction with the police ministry and the department, is to say there has to be a plan to arrest this decline. Because another worrying thing, and the insight that you played before this interview speaks to one of the big issues, is that on a monthly basis, over 50 detectives leave the South African Police Service pursuing other opportunities, primarily in the private sector. And today, for instance, I did an oversight visit in two police stations in Johannesburg, and what came out clear from those oversight is that you find the better trained detectives, the newer ones who are trained in use of technology, those who are able to investigate complex cases, including fraud, online fraud, and so forth, that they are the ones that get to leave the South African police services. And that's why this is a serious cause for concern to all South Africans.
But many have said that morale is generally low because, as you stated there, you'd find them being overloaded with work. They piled with all this work. It becomes difficult for them. They're traumatized. They want to resolve cases for family members who constantly call them, but they cannot because the workload is just too much.
Indeed, even in my conversations with the police officials that I spoke to today, but the ones that I've been speaking to since I got back into Parliament, they do speak about the working conditions, both in terms of morale, the environment that they work under, even some of the buildings that they are forced to work in are not conducive for them to do the work properly. And this is something that even when you look at when we have to fight crime, we must always look after the people that are there to protect us. Because if you have the high-skilled individuals leaving the police, the end result is that the criminals that are supposed to be in jail don't go to jail. And they continue terrorizing communities. They continue killing, raping, and doing all sorts of crime that makes us fearful to live in this country.
Now, if we had to be more granular and look at those vacancies, it seems as though KZN has the highest number of vacancies if we look at the provinces.
Yes.
And it's a crime hotspot. I mean, if you're going to have KZN having the highest numbers of vacancies, what does it really communicate to society about the police's overall plan to combat crime?
Indeed, like you look at the KZN, that's followed closely by the Western Cape. One of the issues in the Western Cape is around the extortion gangs, gangsterism, generally fighting drugs, the high violence in both the Western Cape and KZN. And this is something that even from the police, there has to be a commitment to identify, recruit, and train a lot more detectives so that we can be able to win this fight against crime, because all of us want to live in a safe country. But when you have such high number of vacancies, but also that on a monthly basis you have 50 more detectives that are leaving, and these are not people retiring from the South African police, are people that are leaving the South African police, mostly going into the private sector because of the working conditions in there. But if we are to take this matter seriously, we have to present, and this is what I ask of the minister, this is what I ask of the police commissioner, General Masimula, to say that there has to be a concrete plan on how we are going to identify, recruit and train detectives so that we can fill these vacancies, because these vacancies are funded vacancies. So we are not talking about unfunded vacancies.
But they're
all
recruiting.
These vacancies are funded. So what is needed is the identification, recruitment, training and placement of detectives, so that after the visible policing or even the National Intervention Unit that you were interviewing before, they've arrested criminals. There has to be proper investigation so that those criminals don't have to come back in communities and terrorize us and other members of the community.
But to their defense, they are recruiting. Just last year, we were reporting on 4,800 new recruits that joined the force. But you had security experts saying they're fairly young and inexperienced. They hardly will assist in this respect.
So in terms of the detectives, like sometimes when you look at most of the recruitment, it does not go into the detectives. So what I want the minister at this particular point to focus on, it's around detectives, because it's one thing to arrest the criminals. So community members cry to say, no, we have reported the case. So we have seen this person being arrested. But three days later or a week later, the person is released because there hasn't been proper investigation. Even when you go to courts, there are a lot of cases that even magistrates and judges end up withdrawing or dropping because they say, no, there's no adequate evidence to prosecute this person or to make sure that they face the full might of the law. So arresting is not enough. There should not just be a focus on arresting criminals. There must be arrest, there must be investigation, then followed by proper prosecution so that criminals can be removed permanently from society.
Makashule, thank you very much for your time this evening. That was Makashule Gana, Mzansi Member of Parliament. We have reached out to the police for comment and will update you as soon as they respond.